Radio. All right, so before we launch into what we're doing in this module, we can set our motivation. Motivation, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. The purpose of my life is to benefit all other sentient beings. This is what we say in the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. And the greatest benefit you can offer is to liberate them from suffering and its causes. In order to do that, you need to attain enlightenment. And to do that, you need to achieve the Lam Rim, which is what all the teachings have been on so far, the different, up to, well, we're about, we've reached the great scope, we say, of the Lam Rim. The gradual, oh, we haven't actually. No, we're about to launch into the middle scope. We've done, because we just had the refuge on module, the module on refuge, which means we've completed the small scope. Hence, arriving here, thinking about establishing daily practice, to have enough of the teachings, of the common teachings, to make it make sense for us. Life is like last night's dream. Don't hold on to it as solid or inherently existence. The advice on practice is given with the intention of making your life, this most precious human life you've received just this once, as meaningful as possible. In the past, you've sacrificed your life and died numberless times, creating the causes of suffering in samsara, but have almost never sacrificed your life for the sake of Dharma, especially trying to bring other sentient beings to enlightenment. So do as much as you can, follow as much as you can. Then don't worry, be happy. Okay. I think Lama Yeshe wrote that last bit. So, oh, Rinpoche. Then don't worry, be happy. Okay, so yeah, so we're touching on this teaching of the Buddha in this module on the 7 enlightenment factors. But what it does is, as we go along, unpacking the advice for a daily practice. So I did send you one document with that advice from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. That was from the first preliminary motivation at the beginning of that. There'll be other documents coming, like shorter, with just like, okay, this is one option for what your day looks like in terms of practice. This is another one, shorter, longer, just to give some guidelines to us. So we know already, having, those who've taken refuge, we have this commitment to anyway do some formal practice in the morning and evening. So 3 prostrations in the morning, 3 prostrations in the evening, refuge and bodhicitta prayer, like we just recited, 3 times in the morning. So that's been ticked if it wasn't ticked earlier, and 3 times in the evening. And so that's the actual commitment of that in terms of a formal practice. But what the invitation here is to come to start to integrate those teachings into, to integrate them into our mind, so that it's not just left at surface level. So this is what we're looking at here. Okay, so not that one. It's the outline that we have. So there's some recommended readings there, and of course I've sent you the course readings. But there's probably more that will come along. When I look at the recommended readings, mostly are about meditating on the Lam Rim, and Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand has a wonderful section about setting up your altar, and we'll be covering those 6 preliminary practices, setting up, making offerings, setting up your meditation seat, setting motivation, invoking the refuge field, 7 in prayer, and mandala. So that sort of, we'll be covering all that. And also Pabonka Rinpoche has another text, which is how to meditate on the stages of enlightenment. That's quite a long text, but anyway, we can draw some maybe inspiration from that. Making life meaningful, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I think that's the one that has, thinking, is it that one or Joy of Compassion that has the prostrations practice? One of them has the prostrations to 35 Buddhas. Okay, so I guess maybe some of you have already some sort of daily practice. Yeah, okay, good. So that's good. But on the road, I mean, logically, how these modules are set out, it's like, okay, now I've taken refuge. I've got to, for those who have, I've got a commitment to do. And so what should I do? And then people, we hear different meditations, different things, and it's like, what do I do out of all of this? Okay. Yeah. All right. So first of all, it's sort of more a general overview that that if we don't learn, having had a body of teachings, if we don't learn how to put them into practice and then make effort to put them into practice deeply in our mind stream, that we can come under the influence of what's called insensitivity to Dharma, where we get the teachings and it's like, oh yeah, I know that, and oh yeah, practice human regret. Oh yeah, it is certain, time is uncertain, what's going to help me at time of death. And so it means we don't go away and really think about the teachings. If we're like that, then it's like our mind becomes hardened, and so we don't keep an open mind. We talked before about the upturned pot, for example, and we can check up with ourselves if we've been studying, even we've been reflecting on that, even we've been meditating on that, but our sense of self hasn't been challenged at all, shall we say, hasn't been diminished, and had to be even got stronger, that would be terrible. And we're easily agitated by others, then we could say that, that we're not, the Dharma is not soaking into our minds. Before when Lama Zopa Rinpoche accepted me for ordination, Rinpoche gave me a certain practice to do. And given that it was, I think, well, I didn't know what day I was going to be ordained on, but it could have been like within 10 days, right? At the end, it was the end of Rinpoche's trip in New Zealand was the last. And now I've seen that happen a few times. I thought, oh, no, maybe Rinpoche does the ordinations at the end. After a short break. Anyway, I was given this practice, and then I was calculating the number of hours it would take me and the number of hours in a day, and how am I going to get this done? And going to Geshe Samten and talking like that, and he's like, you just have to, what Rinpoche means is to have it on your mind stream. So this is what we're wanting to do with our practice, so that it's on our mind stream, so that maybe, say we've been doing the refuge bodhicitta prayer for some time, and then maybe we'll wake up and be reciting it, or maybe throughout the day it'll just come to mind, that sort of thing, where it's on your mind stream and it just spontaneously comes to mind. And it's said that at the time of death, if we can put our mind in refuge, we're going to be looked after. It's not that the Buddhas won't look after us, otherwise they'll look after all beings, but that if our mind is soaked in something like as powerful as refuge, or even thinking of the Buddha, then that sets us up well for continuing on. Okay. So, yeah. So when the Dharma is sort of soaking into our minds, it's said that whenever we hear even the most simple of teachings, it engenders some warmth in our hearts. So we don't sit there going, oh, I know this teaching, like one of the students did many years ago at Vajrayana Institute. She said, oh, Four Noble Truths, I've heard that once. But it's that sense of familiarity. Maybe you've noticed this yourself. It seems, when you hear a teaching over and over again, and then you might have heard from different teachers and different circumstances, it all starts up to build up a meaning for you of its own, or different aspects start to, sort of have a special meaning. Or I remember from when we were reciting, we had to recite 160 times the Sangata Sutra, which I had never encountered before that many years ago in Sydney. I made a commitment to recite 20, and I didn't realise it took 2 to 3 hours to recite it once. I was thinking like Heart Sutra, and then I actually didn't. Yeah, be careful when you make a commitment, check out the text. Anyway, I made that commitment. So that was my Friday morning practice, because I wasn't working on Friday, volunteering in the afternoon, etc. But, some of the phrases stuck, like, for example, have you done coming to Jambudvipa? So Jambudvipa is this world system, it's like, in the Buddhist cosmology, the southern continent that we are in. And the blue continent, which certainly was affirmed when they first went into space, isn't it? The blue continent. Anyway, so that sticks with me, and it's like, have you done coming to Jambudvipa? Means are you over samsara yet? Are you renouncing samsara? Are you determined to emerge from samsara? So just that phrase can evoke that, because I've many times of recitation, and I've recited it many times since, certainly not on a daily basis, then it sticks. And I'm guessing there's a whole bunch of phrases or quotes that you've heard, or particular aspects of the teachings that you feel, oh yeah, that's really there. I've got that. So that's what we're wanting to really develop more of. So it said, so that it becomes very special to you, very meaningful to you. So it said, if tears naturally come to your eyes, or the hair on the back of your neck rises, or you get a tingling sensation in your body when you listen to Dharma teachings, even if it's a topic that you've studied for years, these are good indications that you are integrating the Dharma well into your life. I haven't had tears come yet. I've had the tingling sensations, but I think Rinpoche hadn't even opened his mouth, he just walked in. So I'm not sure. The presence, Guru devotion, the presence of the holy being was just, yeah. So, however, if I'm still thinking the reason I'm having this or that problem is because of someone else, what they're doing, not doing, etc., that's an indication that I haven't really understood the meaning of Dharma. So this is where we check our minds and see what progress we've made. We're not perfect, and it's, we're going to have times when that happens, but it may not be now our default position. So we just check up with ourselves, or we might remedy it later. So that means that we've really made some progress here. Dharma, so if it's like that, it means our mind and the Dharma, there's a gap, there's a separation, the connection hasn't been made. So what we're wanting to do is close the gap, to really bring that connection together. Yeah. So, for example, maybe when we first heard the Dharma, and especially the kindness of the mother, and you go, oh, I don't have a good relationship with my mother. Oh, my parents. Oh, yeah, no. Like that. But if after many years of studying and practicing, it's still like that, that we still have that attitude, not appreciating our parents on the basis of they've given us this body, this precious human rebirth. Well, we've contributed the conditions to make it a precious human rebirth, but they've given us this body on which we can study Dharma practice and so forth. So again, we check up how much is our, and that's just one example you can apply to whoever you want to apply to. Whereas if we find our attitude has changed, in other words, that we've got some different perspective on that, or we feel a closeness we didn't feel to somebody, or even we feel they're very precious, like, for example, with my mother, of course, when I was a ratty teenager, there was a bit of conflict, but I grew out of it and actually felt very close to my mother always. But it wasn't until caring for her at the end of the life that I really felt the deep appreciation for being able to offer back to her, because she'd given so much to me in my life, and I could never repay that kindness enough. And to think in that way was because of the teachings. So, and maybe we have that sense of that, but to be able to clearly put a framework around that, I think once we've encountered the Dharma, we have that. So the aim is to end the gap. So to make so that our mind is Dharma, so that we have in practice that Rinpoche's advised for a daily practice, which is the method for transforming a suffering life into happiness, including enlightenment. And there's one, it's a compilation from different sources. And there's this verse that you may have heard before, which is, please, Guru, bless my mind to become Dharma, the Dharma to become the path, and the path to be without obstacles. And so again, taking a short phrase like that and using it to contemplate, meditate what that means. And this was composed by Doje Chanlo Jingpa, who was a direct student of Lama Zopa. So for me too, just knowing the lineage of where the practices come from, and you can feel, oh, we're in safe hands. So this is authentic, this is reliable source. And particularly the part of, well, the suggestion that, or the advice that, or the wish that may the path be without obstacles, because as we go along, we have some initial enthusiasm, like for everything in life, and then, that wanes, and how do we keep ourselves going? How we keep ourselves enthused? So the lack of enthusiasm, the lack of perseverance can be an obstacle. There can be all sorts of other obstacles. We had COVID, and ta-da, Zoom to the rescue. We were able to connect in ways we hadn't connected before after a period of, well, I know at Chenrezig we had a period of we weren't able to do anything. And then fortunately we had the conditions in the form of somebody who knew her stuff, being able to set up a media team and get it all going very quickly so that we could still have that Dharma access. So that's another obstacle that then became an opportunity, because as we know, all around the world, people zoom in, we zoom into other teachings maybe elsewhere, and that capacity opened up big time. So, yeah. So, of course, the ultimate Dharma, as we learn when we're looking at refuge, is the actual wisdom realizing emptiness, when that, mind, that having perceived reality as it is, and then eliminating all the mental afflictions one by one, will, or even if we cut the root of ignorance, we don't need to go one by one, and practicing the 6 perfections of bodhicitta. So that's a future module. Then at that point, we've attained the state of Buddhahood. So that's the ultimate Dharma. So we have the sense that, you know, the word Dharma itself can mean truth. It can mean phenomena. And then I would say we put a big D, and it's the Buddha's teachings. So it has all those different meanings. Alrighty, so Babonka Rinpoche says, once you are overcome by insensitivity to Dharma, your mind stream becomes ruined and you're incapable of being tamed, even by the Lam Rim, or the blessed words of your Guru. So apply yourself to the profound method for avoiding insensitivity to Dharma. This is achieved through the blessings of your Guru's speech. In other words, the teachings. The Guru is giving the teachings, giving the advice, and that's a blessing. So it blesses our mind stream if our mind is open to that, along with your own efforts. So that plus your own efforts to listen to the Dharma properly. So Dharma properly, of course, the 3, not having the fault of the 3 pots of overturned or in one ear and out the other, the leaky pot or the contaminated pot. And I think that's the hardest one, because we mix everything up with our own misguided views. But as we go along, we, you know, if we really listen to the Dharma and really have, you know, the more conviction in that, the clearer and clearer our mind becomes, and the clearer sense of direction. So however much understanding you gain through hearing Dharma, it's vital to generate soon afterwards the understanding which comes from reflection. So we talk about the 3 wisdoms, the wisdom of hearing the teachings, so literally hearing with your ear. And there's something in that in terms of receiving transmissions directly, you know, any teaching, you know, so we had like Chökyi Zopa here giving teachings on Tara, and then the transmission of the 21 Taras. These transmissions that at some point on the Bodhisattva grounds, they were all just ta-da, automatically arise. We'll remember all those teachings. So we could think, okay, well, my life is to get as many teachings as I can, and that would be valid. But for them to ripen on the mind stream, we need to then, the wisdom of reflection is really, really important. It's like taking that, what we've heard, and discussing with each other, reading commentaries about it, reflecting on it, looking at it from every which way angle, and trying to get some deeper understanding, and then taking that understanding into meditation. So that, which is, you know, let me say the wisdom of meditation. But that reflection step is often just, oh yes, and then reflect and then meditate, as if the teaching and the meditation, but that reflection step is really, really important. As Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, the Lam Rim is our last chance. So dramatic, isn't it? It's the quintessential heart instructions that come through the lineage of the teachings from the Buddha. It's the most practical instruction that the Buddha gave, how to actually transform our minds in the path. So if we can't be saved by the Lam Rim, there aren't any other teachings of the Buddha that are going to move our minds. So sometimes we do that. We sort of get one teaching and we might feel stuck there. And so then we might go somewhere else. I'll go to another place, or, you know, try another approach. And it's just a matter of sticking with it. And what I think is really important to do is to look back, whether it's, you know, a little bit of time. So whether it's months or like, oh, a year ago, how much progress have I made since then? Because what we look at is what progress we haven't made. And actually, if we stop and look, well, I don't react like that anymore. I don't do that anymore. And I do that. And yeah, so that we can really come to some appreciation. Right. So one of the analogies is that our mind becomes, there's an analogy, there's a Tibetan analogy. I don't know if they still do this, the leather butter analogy. So traditionally, the leather would be used to the butter would be used to cure the leather and to make it soft. And then the idea is if the butter's well worked into the leather, then you can work with that, and it's very pliant, and you can make whatever you want out of that. And by working the butter really well into the leather. So that's that idea of working the Dharma really well into our mind. But leather is also used to carry butter. And so in this case, you're not working it in, it's becoming the repository. And that time the leather becomes hard. And so it's not working it in. So they use that as an analogy to, soften your mind, like the butter softening the leather. Okay. Yeah. All right, so basically summing up this introduction is that it's really important for us to develop a sincere and strong daily practice. Strong means that when we're doing it, we're focused on it, we're not distracted and doing other things and so forth. Particularly at the beginning, if we can start that way, then, when we start to have, sort of less engaged practice, which does come, we've got that, at least we've got that time of having done it really well. So in that sense, I guess it's making sure we have set some time to do our practice. Often people say, I don't have time. If I look at my day and think, how much time do I spend on, sleeping you need. Dalai Lama said, we need to get a good 8 hours sleep so that we can meditate well. That's the reason. Of course. But, if we break down the day and think, well, how much time do I actually spend, let me say, in distraction? So it's not so much that I'm busy, I'm actually just in distraction. So if we think, okay, maybe I can turn that distraction time into Dharma time. And that's the part also of whether, regardless of when we're spending time on the cushion, as they say, whether it be a cushion, a lounge or a seat, whatever. And then so that's a certain formal practice time. Of course, the main purpose is to integrate that into our life so that it empowers us in our lives, in our interactions with others and so forth. And that we're able to have a sense of restraint of, they call it the 3 doors, our body, speech and mind. They call it 3 doors. So, of course, that's doing in practice. And then, okay, how can I implement that throughout the day? What are the challenges going to be throughout the day, and reflecting on that at the end of the day and so forth. So the danger could be that we don't actually do the formal practice and only do that and saying, I'm practicing Dharma. And we are, but we have to check our mind. And I think, it's that thing of having those, as I was saying earlier, prayers and practices that we build up associations with, and we build up a routine of that in our day as well. So that, of course, if you're the Dalai Lama, you'll be up at 3 a.m. and 5 hours later, get on with everything else. But let's start small with what we can do. Okay. So far, so good? Right. So then, just looking at these 7 enlightenment factors, we'll start on that. So this idea of practice, and we've encountered that already with the teachings, perhaps that it's providing conditions for turning our mind around. It's like turning it 180 degrees around, from self-cherishing and just thinking about me and how everyone's impacting me, to turning our attention outwards towards others. So having a more enlightened view. So that is the purpose, one purpose, great purpose of having a daily practice, is that to change our old dysfunctional habits, our own reactive states of mind, and create conditions for that turnaround in our mind, to cultivate the positive qualities and diminish those that destroy our equanimity. So the Buddha gave this teaching on the 7 enlightenment factors for doing that, for transforming our mind. We have many teachings, like the whole set of Lojong teachings and so forth, which came subsequently, mind training. In fact, all the Buddha's teachings is mind training. But these particular ones that enable us to do that, turning our minds around, and that's through mindfulness. So we've looked at that. Investigation of the Dharma. So it's when we have the teachings and reflecting on that. Energy and effort in our practice. Joy and rapture, which are particular qualities. And joy is the most powerful positive quality there is. Whenever I'm feeling like it's waning, mission joy to the rescue. Thanks to His Holiness Dalai Lama, Desmond Tutu. So that experience, generating that experience in our mind, it's talked about a lot, this experience of bliss. And when we looked at the 9 stages of the path, and it talked about physical pliancy and mental bliss and mental pliancy. And it's like, what is this bliss thing? Okay, so that one. Tranquility and pliancy, they're 2 different things. But a sense of peace, which is probably why people first ever engage with the Dharma, the wish for that. But that pliancy, that malleability of the mind that allows us to actually respond to situations and not think, like the Dalai Lama said, sometimes I catch myself thinking of myself as a Buddhist monk, and then you think, well, what's the problem with that? You are a Buddhist monk. And what His Holiness is indicating of putting on the persona or putting yourself in that box. So if I were to put myself in that box, and before I ordained, I was being advised by a senior nun. I said, well, after I'm ordained, I won't be able to do this and I won't be able to do that. And she was saying, oh, not necessarily. One of them was, I said, I won't be able to travel. And she said, not necessarily. And that's true. I've traveled quite a bit as a nun. I thought, I'm going to be in this sort of cloistered environment. I mean, that may still happen, but it hasn't been the case so far. So we limit ourselves because we think, oh, as a Dharma practitioner, like I couldn't do this, that, and the other thing. And I'm finding that now, as for myself, as I've, shall I say, matured in my ordination, that, and because of the times, that really being a socially engaged Sangha member is really, really important in these times. So that's sitting very comfortably. Developing concentration, developing equanimity. Okay. So we can see that how, and we will see how, our regular daily practice can deepen all of these factors, mature them in our mind. And that then these factors are also a measure of the effectiveness of our practice, how much mindfulness we have, for example. One phrase from Rinpoche that resonates in my mind is, you can tell how much someone understands the Lam Rim, or no, not understands, practices the Lam Rim by how they behave. And I think a lot of that comes down to mindfulness, awareness of our mind, of our speech, of our behavior. I mean, practicing ethical restraint is the main focus of having taken refuge. You know, we take these vows so that we start to see if we can live with some discipline of our body and mind, and speech. So particularly at the level of refuge is the body and speech, and then we go on to work with the mind. Okay. So far so good. Any questions, comments? Alrighty, so, okay. Okay, so this measure of mindfulness, for example, how we attend to things, how we attend to events. So it's not just, oh, I do mindfulness meditation, but when I'm engaging with the world and others and so forth, how am I attending to that? So when we're meditating, it's how am I attending to my mind? And when we're in, in between times, which is most of the time in our life, we're attending to our relationships, we're attending to the environment, I attend to the ants. See, before Dharma, I never attended to ants. And now I'm sort of, especially out there at the moment, it's sort of like stop, start, walk around, etc. It's great practice. So mindfulness, this steady attention to things happening in the present moment. A steady attention to things happening in the present moment, which brings me back always to Venerable Roger and his presence in the moment, regardless. I mean, of course, we've seen recently that, I think he said it was the first time he'd cried. He's a human being, of course, having served Lama Zopa Rinpoche very, very closely for so many decades. And, that loss was sort of brought a grieving, but he's a very steady person. And then, my experience when he was telling me the advice from Rinpoche of when I was going to be ordained at my home mudra centre. Well, I wasn't ordained, I was ordained Georgia Chan, but we're at my home mudra centre in New Zealand and we're outside. And then you can think how I might have been in a state of euphoria. But Venerable Roger maintained that steadiness. And as I went to walk away, be careful of that insect, so that mindfulness of everything, moment to moment, present with everything that's going on. And they're really very potent, very calm, very measured. And so then when we're meditating, that mindfulness in terms of, well, what's going on in my mind at the present moment, particularly if we're attending to applying the mindfulness of mental events, the mind itself. So being aware of that, not just when meditating actually, but it's easier when meditating, that we're aware that we're going over past memories, we're aware that we're fantasizing in these imaginary scenarios, we're aware that we're in a particular emotional state, so particular thoughts arising in our mind, whatever's happening right here and now. And the more that we get better at that in meditation, not to try and stop it, but to familiarize, the more we are familiar with that as we're engaging in activities, and then can intervene, shall we say, when necessary. Right? So it's that sense of, okay, yeah, we all want to gain control of our mind. So the more I can cultivate this deep sense of being aware in the moment, in the present, of everything that's going on. So when we were looking at mental factors, it's what we call non-forgetfulness, so being present. And then it doesn't mean literally this, but I also think if I'm fully present, I'm more likely to remember, because I haven't been, you know, leaky pot or whatever, fully engaged. So it doesn't have to be a like, you know, squeezing your mind, focus, laser beam, but just being actually at ease, but fully engaged. Yeah.
That example of Roger, he has so many responsibilities,
yes,
and people are always asking.
Yeah.
So, him to be able to give that attention to you in that way is very amazing.
I think that's what impressed me, that I knew, like, not only Rinpoche's in long-term attendant, and this was during a time when Rinpoche was there giving teaching, so he had a lot to attend to. When you know, when Venerable Roger gives you that moment, that's your moment. The next moment it won't be, but that moment it is. And that's quite remarkable. So we're training the mind to settle, to calm. So, you know, often when we start a meditation, hopefully, we first of all focus on getting the body into the conducive space, having a conducive environmental space. And when we look at setting up a place to practice for ourselves, we want to see that that's a place that's conducive for us to be able to sit and settle our mind into that. And that the more we engage with that again and again in the same place, a few things happen. One is that we familiarize that, you know, it becomes a routine. Like we familiarize with, oh, this is, it may not be 24/7 your meditation space, but we've got that space at those times of day. So some people have a meditation room in their house, and that's fantastic. There might be a space within a room. Whatever other happens is that it builds up that positive energy, that energy of that practice in that space, transforms the energy of that area, just like this gompa has been built up of energy of people engaging in meditation, listening to teachings, pujas and so forth. So all of that's built up, that energy in here. And, you know, people often say when they go into a gompa, oh, it feels so peaceful here. And that means they can tell the difference between the contrast of the rest of their life. We might get used to that, but maybe at the beginning we felt that experience, and maybe at other times we do too. People just come in here, sometimes they say, I just want to come and sit, because of that energy. So that's what happens when we set up our own meditation space. And then, you know, this sense of bringing our mind to attend to one thing. It's sort of like, one analogy is that like bringing all your energy in, like in an irrigation channel, you know, you're channeling all that energy, so it's not just dispersing out everywhere, which is what it's doing most of the day. And that, you know, over time, that becomes a power of also of resilience, a sort of inner strength, because that energy is focused and not just going out in all directions. And then that can become your ground state for throughout the day and so forth. Well, again, I'm thinking about Geshe Samten and going to him many times for advice, and such clear and immediate advice with a few words, like a sense of clarity of just getting right to the point. And not, you know, you might be going, oh, it's sort of about this or that, or and you know it's the right thing. It's very, makes us very efficient. So another phrase I find very useful in this, it's in the Bodhisattva vows. It's in one of the earlier translations, and the translation's been changed a bit, but I like it because I hold with my mind the perfect state of a Buddha. And I love that. To me, it's like I'm holding my mind in that space. And translations change, but I still have that thought because I've then reflected on it many times of what that means. And it has that potency of holding your mind in that space. And that's what we do with mindfulness. We hold our mind in the present moment. We hold our mind with what is happening right now, so that then the body can react or respond appropriately. React has that reactive thing to it, but respond appropriately. So again, thinking of quotes, phrases of Dharma that really help you engender those states of mind you want to develop. To investigate the Dharma means to use our intelligence to look deeply at a focal object to better understand it and dispel any misconceptions. So here is when we're doing analytical meditation, or when we're doing the reflection stage, where we're really looking from different angles or points of the Lam Rim topic, for example. You know, we take one topic and we know the actual points set out, like death is certain, time is uncertain, the only thing that's going to help me is the Dharma. And then we're, because our mind becomes hardened to it, insensitive to the Dharma. We really need to look at it as, you know, freshly each time and think, oh, what different ways can I think about that? You know, uncertainty of the time of the Dharma, of death. We have examples in the news every day. You know, oh, yeah, there's an example of uncertainty of the time of death. So we can link it into things that we're hearing about and think, oh, there it is. And this is integrating our mind in the Dharma, connecting the dots. You know, don't feel like you have to do it 24/7, but just taking those opportunities to connect the dots. Oh, yes, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so. Yeah. So to better understand it, so that we get a deeper, richer understanding, and to dispel any misconceptions that we have. So misconception, for example, in relation to karma. What would be a misconception in relation to karma? That it doesn't matter. There's only one tiny little ant, it's okay. It's not okay, as we know. Once we know, it's not okay. Once we know, there's no unknowing. But, you know, the mind can get lazy or not think, actually, just not think. So this idea of having a genuine sense of curiosity, of openness, you know, wanting to find out more about the object of our meditation. I really want to, karma is so mysterious. I really want to find out more about how it functions and to, you know, look at it from different perspectives, get more teachings about it, reflect on it more. So having this sense of curiosity in the Dharma, where it's not just, oh, well, so-and-so said it's like this, so the Buddha said, never do that. Don't just take something because I said it. You investigate. And that analogy of the, you know, like a goldsmith, you know, cutting, melting, you know, so forth, burning the gold. I never knew they did all these things, right? Learned that from the Buddha. So having this sense of awe, having a sense of curiosity, how amazing. I know when one time in the US, I was going to the Lamp of the Path retreat, being driven along the road, and I was thinking about Lama Yeshe's vision for the 16 guidelines. So 16 guidelines was Lama Yeshe would say, don't use the R word, which is religion. You know, that again, you sort of cut off the possibility for people. So it developed as an ethics education. And as I was going on thinking about it, this will transform the world. The more I think about it now in such an unethical world, the more it desperately needed, right? We seem to be going the other way, unfortunately. So this was in the 1980s, and I think, wow, you know, we were given many, many advices early on that now we're seeing the need for that. Like example, well, it wasn't so more recently in 2005, Lama Zopa Rinpoche was talking about the need to look after Sangha as they age. And now it's like, well, we've talked about it a lot amongst the Sangha. We've talked about it a lot in different possibilities, but we haven't done anything.
That's Sangha nursing home.
No, but that's, you've also got to see if Sangha will go to the Sangha nursing home. Actually, when saying that, there is a group, Meta Centre in Sydney, who are doing precise. They've got the property. They just want people to. It used to be a nursing home, and somebody within the group purchased it, and so they're thinking about it. We might have to relocate to Sydney in the future. No, long way off. Yeah, but it's like they give us these things with a great deal of foresight. I mean, they're way ahead of us, and then we go, oh, that's why we needed to do that, because now we're stuck. Yeah. All right. Okay, so in developing this mindfulness for daily living, the first thing, our motivation. So I read motivations from Rinpoche's advice about establishing daily practice. We set our motivation for the day. Buddhist teachings hold that each of our actions is necessarily preceded by an intention. So setting our motivation, sometimes it's called correcting our motivation to make sure that our mind is in the right intention. Flavoured by different motivating factors normally. To practice mindfulness of our motivation is to ask and reflect on the question, what is my motivation for today? It's not a bad question, is it? What is my motivation today? May everything I think, do and say be of benefit to others. And may I not cause any harm. I'll read out from His Holiness. My favourite one. No?
Some of it.
Read out from His Holiness. No? No? Every day as you wake up, think as you wake up. Every day think as you wake up is already think as you wake up. Today, I am fortunate to be alive. I have to think about that because we take it for granted. We wake up and we take it for granted that we're alive. But having had the teachings, we would say, I am fortunate that I'm alive. I'm fortunate that I'm alive, that I'm well, that I, can function. I have a precious human rebirth, and we'll reflect on that meaning of that. And having this precious, I'm not going to waste it. I'm not going to waste my day. The Dalai Lama says that often, don't waste a moment of this precious human rebirth. I'm going to use all my energies to develop myself, all my energies. Because my freak out mind goes, what, no kick back, relax time? Yes, because that's your sustenance. It's okay. Kick back, relax is another way of not wasting. But if that's my whole day, think again. I'm going to use all my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others. If we really think about these line by line, it has a greater impact. I'm going to expand my heart out to others. And then that starts to suddenly become your orientation, that you do look to others, and you do engage, with others with a warmth in your heart, whether you actually say the words or not, we pick it up. When I go into the chemist, there's always a security person there. And because I've always said hello to them every time I go in, they say hello back.
Oh, I found the same thing actually.
Yes. I always say hello. How are you today? How are you? Yeah. And the woman begging on the street.
Oh, Sarah.
Yeah. Well, our conversations have developed a bit longer. I think next time it'll be a coffee. No, just, yeah, wonderful. To achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings, I'm going to have kind thoughts towards others. So we're really orienting our mind to say kind thoughts, to say to our mind, to have kind thoughts. Kind thoughts, remember, kind thoughts, not terrible thoughts, kind thoughts. I'm not going to get angry. Slippery slope, the slightest irritation up to rage, hatred and all that venom stuff, which is, again, distressing my mind and many of our minds at the moment, with how much of that shocking to just think of the shock of that, how we're reacting to how much venom there is out there. Quite ugly. I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to be one of those. Or think badly about others. So that is really challenging. This is the training, we make this commitment, and then throughout the day, I have to remind myself of that again and again and again. I'm going to benefit others as much as I can. So we have to be realistic for now, but the more that we orient ourselves towards that, the more whatever benefit we can be, we build up another habit so that our ability, our capacity to benefit others becomes greater and greater. The words come to mind of what's going to be help in this situation, or the actions come to mind of what's going to help. Will it help everything? Will, the person say, oh, thank you very much? Not necessarily. That's fine. But, the more wisdom we develop like that, the more we can benefit each other, benefit others. And then don't we feel good when that happens? I have to pause and say, thank you very much. There's a couple of you here contributing to the spring clean. You will have noticed a verge of suddenly a hedge has grown everywhere. But the energy through the place is really lovely. It's just like, oh, we can breathe. So thank you. In the rain, in the wind, I was like, go inside. Oh no, I'm fine. Oh. I rejoice. I rejoice. It's truly, truly. It's so wonderful. That was certainly benefiting a lot of others, benefiting the Dharma. Service to the Dharma is the best, the most powerful. Thank you very much. Okay, so what is my motivation today, or for engaging in this action? So in my former life as a theatre performer, every line that you have in a script, what is my motivation for this line? And the director says your motivation is this. They tell you what your motivation is. You can debate, but you think about that in every line. Imagine that we thought about it with every thought. Imagine that we thought about it before it comes out, or in action and speech. What's my motivation for this? If there's any negativity there, zip it a lip. So this is helping us to cultivate restraint through mindfulness of our actions, or mindfulness of our thoughts, actually. Because most of the times I don't think we're aware of our intention, our motivation. It's just like we go into action without thinking, hang on. I mean, a lot of intentions are quite neutral. If I want to go out the door, the intention is to go out the door. It's a neutral thing. So the body's going to follow that intention. But I have to sit here and I'm intending to go out the door. I'm now getting up to follow that intention. No, we don't have to be like that. But just check our minds from time to time. And then we start then on the Lam Rim. Of course, the first step is Guru devotion. And then we go on, well, reflecting on our precious human life is also, you know, as you can see, Guru devotion and precious human rebirth are actually the reflections that we do before we go on to the small scope. It's sort of like precursor to everything. That propels us then to go further. So our precious human life. What are the freedoms and endowments I have in this moment? Anyone want to throw in a few freedoms that you have? Endowments you have? Yvonne. You can go wherever you go and your cat cannot. Yes, absolutely. Although your cat probably goes a few places that you don't go. Not telling you, but yeah, confined to the house. Hopefully it's more like a comfort zone than a prison. Anything else? The freedom to practice, actually to have encountered the Dharma, and not in a state where you don't encounter it, but having the freedom to practice. If we think, you know, we've just got to look around where there, of course, we take it for granted again in Australia because we have those freedoms, but there are countries where people don't have that freedom, including Tibet. Yes. Especially Tibet. That's what's horrific, isn't it? Yeah. Anything?
Having the time, available time.
Yeah.
I've had a very busy career and now it's different.
Now
stage.
Yeah.
Having a house that's conducive to practice.
Yeah.
I mean, really, when I stop and think about it,
a lot of conditions. Really and this is where, like, we have formal points that are presented, but if we really look at, well, what is there I can appreciate about my life that enables me to engage with the Dharma?
Where I've been, where I'm living.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at floods and
everything
going on.
I know I was reading about El Nino, and it seemed that over East everyone was going to be affected, and WA not so much.
Because it's 31 or something in Sydney.
It's really hot there at the moment.
Yeah,
I know. I mean, I'm enjoying exactly tolerable weather experience, but you know, not saying people in Sydney have done something bad to experience hot hills, but everything that happens, that we attribute to external things is actually a result of our own karma ripening, right, as well. And so we have to think in that way that, oh, wow, I've got these precious conditions, because I look ahead and go, just wait for December. So I'm loving this right now and make the most of this now, when you've got all the beautiful conducive conditions. So I think it's good to just appreciate the actual things that present them to ourselves as appreciating these conditions. And so, I often think and say, this is as good as it gets. We're never going to have better conditions than we have right now. If I can't do it now, when? Because the conditions aren't going to get any better. And then you think, I must have worked really hard in past lives to have the conditions I have now. And that sense of not wasting it. So it's a matter of reflecting in a way that really personalizes it for yourself, that really makes it grab hold and interest your mind. Because, not being born in Hong so I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean,
well, it's sort of evident.
Well, in a way, I mean, I might think, okay, not being in bushfires, not being in, extreme heat. I can say this month. This month's not being in extreme heat. It's true. I don't know why people make Marble Bar a tourist destination. People just want to experience the heat, but not necessarily live with it. Over, don't wait, don't worry. Before you will be looking for the place that's where the ice caps haven't melted yet, and you can go there. So yeah, we want to seek out these as momentary things, but we certainly don't want to live there. So we can, just really make it very personal. What I appreciate having clarity of mind. I appreciate physical health. Yes. Yeah.
How do you expect yourself to appreciate? Because a few months ago, everything just seemed to be going wrong. So our car was down.
Yes.
We were evicted from our home. We moved, started a new job.
Yeah.
Everything was just going
yeah.
wrong. Oh gosh, it's not a good karma run out at this point. Like, how do you motivate?
Well, see, that's the thing, because then it says to a path to be without obstacles, but in fact, we do have obstacles in life. And just as when I was intending to go to teachings with Chökyi Rinpoche the first time he came to Australia, and it ended up in hospital, and heard the message conveyed to me from Chökyi Rinpoche. It's just like, oh, well, Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say, wow, 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 amazing, amazing, amazing. Chökyi Rinpoche was a bit more succinct in his words, always. Like, he was often just sat there, looked like he was just abiding in bliss. Yeah, he probably was. And anyway, it was like better than eons of hot hells. And suddenly my mind goes, of course, because I wasn't thinking about eons of hot hells. I was thinking about poor me, not there. I'm here in hospital and not feeling so great. And so just realizing that, there could be a worse alternative, whereas as a human being, I can make sense of this. As a human being who's met the Dharma, I still don't like it. And it feels overwhelming, but I can make some sense of it. If I can purify that, whatever karma, don't worry what the karma was, we don't know unless we're a Buddha. If I can purify that now, then I won't have to experience that again in another life. I have to say in another life, because she'll say, well, it happened again. We hope it doesn't happen again. But for things to ripen in a way where we've got the conditions that you can say, well, at least I had another home to go to. At least I had a job to go to. At least the car could be repaired or replaced or whatever. Yeah, and I'm not living in a war zone where you've lost everything, means you've lost everything, or the earthquake at the moment was Morocco. Yeah. Yeah, and that can help then also turn our mind towards them rather than looking at what I'm going through. Even if I include your husband, us, me and mine are going through. And it's like, actually, it's nothing compared to what a lot of people are experiencing. That might be more potent than thinking about future life because we don't see it.
I think to sort of think, well, the negative karma's right now.
Yes.
And okay, yeah, like you say, not happy or whatever, but it's right now. And so that's the suffering. And if I'm churning mentally, I'm just adding unnecessary.
Yeah, you're adding. That's another way to think about it. Why add suffering on top of suffering? It's already suffering. Why be miserable as well on top and make it worse? Yeah, because if I'm coming back to my example that I used, then I can think, I had advice from Chökyi Rinpoche. I mean, that really honed it because I had that advice of what to practice that was related to the teaching Chökyi Rinpoche was giving. People brought me in recordings of the teachings so I could have them in my ears. I was able to continue on and doing my prostration yondro in a hospital. I had the medical care I needed. I had my Dharma sisters, nuns visiting me, and bringing me nice food from up the road from Green Gourmet.
Oh, because you were in RPA.
I was in RPA, so they bought, well, I don't forget it, but anyway, they bought me really wonderful meals because it's just up the road. See, what a lot of conditions, when we were just in India on pilgrimage, and a couple of people got altitude sickness and had to go to the hospital. You don't get water. You don't get, let alone food. They didn't really want to talk about the toilets. Yeah. I can tell you lots about toilets in India. And
but no.
Let's say the bushes and the brick walls were rather better options.
Yes.
And not only, so the altitude sickness people are all in one ward and they know how to treat them, that are very good, know how to treat them. But you had no privacy. There was no curtain coming around. It was just like, oh, okay. So it was free though. So people had to bring you in food and literally water. There was nothing like to drink, anything. Anyway.
You needed a carer, basically.
Yeah, you couldn't survive without a carer. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So you would need a carer. So, the conditions could be worse. Right? And as Venerable Thubten said, we're piling more suffering on top of the suffering that's there. Okay. All righty. And then the second reminder, or second point, Lamrim point, the certainty of death. I'm definitely going to die. The time of my death is uncertain. So what's the most important thing for me, viewed in the light of death? The Buddha practice. Yep.
Being in the moment, right at the end, without any fear.
That's what we aim towards. It's like Milarepa is saying, in horror of the uncertainty of the time of death, I went to the cave and meditated, and the uncertainty of the time of death. Now, no fear, all fear is gone. What helps me in this is like the people who, like when it sort of used to be Skype, and Skype's not so, I'm not trying to promote anybody in the software, but anyway, and some of the phrases that really help, like one nun has a tagline, one step closer, one breath closer to death, one breath closer to death, because that's part of the contemplations. So we can say, in terms of, in relationship to the certainty of death, uncertainty of the time of death, and the only thing that's going to help is the Dharma, what sort of things help you to, reflections might help you to be aware of it and develop a lack of fear in relation to death. Yes. No, don't be sorry.
I was studying Dharma module.
Yeah.
And I've just been studying that with somebody who died right in front of me. I was at the bus,
Right.
changing for the car, and somebody kept saying the hot box and collapsed, and people were trying to kind of fly it off, and it's certainly it's gone.
Yeah.
He was saying, fortunately, thank you very much. That practical demonstration was straight after all of this was still fresh.
It was still fresh in your mind, and it's like, oh, there it is. Yeah.
I get it.
And it's quite confronting, isn't it? I was at a coffee shop one time, and many years ago, and a woman was young woman, slim, having a coffee in the morning. Next minute, she keeled over and died. It's that sort of thing. Like she was dressed, ready to go to work, and never made it. So those sorts of things, they're quite full on, aren't they, experiences? but it's definitely a strong reminder.
I was listening to the radio yesterday and I had a story. It's like a show called Conversations where they interview somebody.
Yeah.
And this person was being interviewed that he was talking about how he lost both of his parents in a plane crash and he had recommended to his parents to go to this particular place in America.
Oh.
And then he had years of just the whole thing.
Well,
talking about the whole thing, how to then tell other people about both of his parents and all that sort of thing. But, yeah, I mean, you just don't know. I mean,
you don't. You have no idea.
It's about not taking anything for granted like now.
Yeah, not taking anything for granted. I think also the thing, what you've reminded me there is that, because often people, someone, a dear one died, they went off to work and didn't come back or whatever. The last thing we did was have a fight. And you don't want that on your consciousness. So that can be a big reminder to always, at least part on good terms, preferably be on good terms all the time. So again, we can reflect on these from all sorts of different angles, as well as the points and quotes. I find that one from Milarepa very effective, but I'm sure we've all heard different quotes that and it's like that. One, the breath goes out and the next one doesn't come in. Just those sorts of thoughts. Yeah. All right, we might leave it there for today. We will leave it there for today. Thank you. And dedicate. Page 16. Below the mantra. Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the precious body mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And then page 19, long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech. May all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Page 23, long life prayer for Tenzin also. Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition of Buddha's teachings, O foremost and holy Lama, to you for our supreme. O Lama, please, please live long. And this swift return prayer of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all their objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings. Through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request, while striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jaws and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Okay, thank you very much. And if anyone's staying or coming back for the afternoon, we have a Medicine Buddha puja sort of explanation and practice set up.
Should we take down the water bowl offerings on either side, which is where we used to
Yeah,
stuff
okay.